When I was in college, a professor told me that Luke 2 was considered by some to be one of the most problematic passages in Scripture. So let's look at that now. Now, in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be enrolled. This was the first enrollment made when Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to enroll themselves, anyone to his own city. So, what are the problems here? Well, there are three main problems in these three verses. The first one is that we don't have any record that Caesar Augustus made a enrollment, or in this case, a taxation request to get people to register at this time. We know that he actually did this multiple times. We have lots of records from the Romans that they had different times when people had to register to pay taxes. This is not one of them. Second problem is that Quirinius is not governor during this time. Like, he's just not. So Luke, who is one of the most, considered by some, historically, at least attempting to be historically accurate people, has this wrong. He's not governor. And then third, the Romans don't actually make anybody go back to their hometowns. That's not what Romans did. So we have these historical problems with this particular passage. And so scholars like to point out and say, look, got some problems here. 3 verses, 3 big problems. So what are solutions to these problems? How do we look at this as people who like the Bible, think that the Bible is important? But how do we look at this? What is this? Well, first of all, just because we don't know of a decree to get people to register doesn't mean it didn't happen. Or maybe our dates are weird. You know, we've been talking a lot about when was Jesus actually born. That's one of my most popular videos right now, which I think is hilarious, but that's cool. So, yeah, maybe we don't have the date right. Or, you know, maybe it already happened. Or maybe now in those days means around that time. There's different ways that you can look at this particular passage and take it that way. Secondly, with Quirinius being governor, that word, if you hop over into Logos and then look at your Strong's here, it could just be is a ruler, right? He's a ruler. And while it is true that he is not a governor at this point in time, but he was a military leader and he was somebody who had a lot of authority at this point in time. So we could just take the word and just use a different rendering of what it means in English, and it means that, and we'd be fine. So that's a possibility. All right. And then everyone going and enrolling themselves in their hometown. Yeah, maybe the Romans don't require you to do that, but the Jews definitely cared about that a lot. Their family lineages and where they were and how they connected absolutely is important. And of course, the authors of these gospel accounts are also using this as important tie-ins to the themes that they are going to be bringing up later as well. So of course it's important to them as well. So those are some of the answers, some of the ways that you can look at these particular passages. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to satisfy everyone, that everybody's going to be like, yeah, this is great. It could account for special pleading, or you say, well, you're just treating it that way. But at the same time, these are old documents. And we have a tendency to say, okay, it needs to conform to our modern sensibilities in order for it to be accurate. And that's just not how people reading this in the first century would have thought of it. We are looking at it in a different way. Also, there's just words that we translate certain ways that don't necessarily need to be that way. So there you go. That is one way to look at one of the most problematic passages in the New Testament. Have you heard of this before? What other passages have you found to be particularly problematic? Leave a comment down below about that. And Merry Christmas.